Hey, welcome to The Explainer. This is where we take really big, sometimes complicated ideas and, well, we break them down into frameworks you can actually use.
So today, we're going to unpack something really interesting. It's Pharmacist Ben Fuchs' whole philosophy on why we get sick, and more importantly, his unified strategy for health. We're going to start with a frustration I think a lot of us share, then we'll travel upstream to what he says are the real root causes, and finally, we'll look at his big picture solution. All right, let's dive right in. And we're going to start with a feeling that, well, it's something a lot of us know all too well. It's that feeling of being caught in a frustrating cycle, especially if you're dealing with a chronic health issue. You know the drill, right? You're bouncing from one specialist to the next, just trying to get some answers. I mean, it seems like the logical thing to do, doesn't it? You've got an issue with a specific part of your body, so you go see the doctor who specializes in exactly that part. But here's where pharmacist Ben Fuchs throws a wrench in the works. He asks a really critical question. What if this super-focused approach, this laser focus, is actually making us miss the bigger picture entirely? So, an eye problem? Off you go to the ophthalmologist. A heart issue, and bam, you're seeing a cardiologist. And, a skin thing pops up, so it's a visit to the dermatologist. And look, each of these experts is doing their job, right? They're diligently tackling their one specific piece of the puzzle. But here's the kicker. According to Fuchs, this whole fragmented approach, it completely misses the point. He argues that all of these separate, diverse symptoms, from your kidneys to your skin to whatever else, they aren't separate problems at all. They're just different branches on the same dying tree. They're all signs of one single systemic issue that he, pretty bluntly, calls MBFA disease, or my body is falling apart disease. Okay, so if chasing down each individual symptom isn't the answer, then what is? Well, this is where Fuchs says we need to adopt a totally new first principle. And this right here, this is his core idea. He says, where you see the problem is not where the problem begins. The symptom you're looking at is just a signal. The real cause, that's located upstream. So what does he actually mean by going upstream? Well, it's pretty simple, really. It means you have to trace that symptom, whatever it is, all the way back to its true origin. And Fuchs argues that this journey, it almost always leads you back to the body's main operating systems, your digestion and your metabolism. But he's really clear on one point. The digestive system, it's not just another part to look at. He says it is the root system. It's the soil that your entire health grows out of. Okay, so let's actually follow that stream, right? Let's go upstream. The first major system we hit is the blood. And according to Fuchs, the blood can become, well, a literal highway for toxicity. His claim is this: all disease is cell disease. It all starts at the cellular level. And why do cells get sick? Because of what the blood delivers to them. Or, just as important, what it fails to deliver. So Fuchs points a finger at two main culprits that make our blood dirty, as he calls it. First up, you've got a compromised gut. You've probably heard the term leaky gut, and that's when stuff that's supposed to stay in your digestive system leaks out into your bloodstream. Not good. And the second big one? High blood sugar. He says sugar acts like a toxin that literally makes your blood thick and sludgy, and that sludgy blood is a major driver of inflammation all over the body. And this is where a really dangerous chain reaction kicks off. This toxic, sludgy blood, it just can't do its job right. It can't deliver oxygen and nutrients the way it's supposed to. So what happens? Your organs start to get starved, and at the same time, they're getting poisoned. And that just leads to this massive cascade of problems everywhere in the body. This brings us to a really powerful analogy he uses. Fuchs calls our circulatory system the railroad of toxicity. Just picture it. This dirty, sludgy blood is like a train chugging through your entire body, and it's making stops at every single station, the heart, the brain, the skin, you name it, and at every single stop, it's dropping off a little toxic package. Okay, so we've talked about the blood, but if we go even further upstream, there's another absolutely critical area, the very structure that literally holds our body together. We're talking about connective tissue. And this is where he really flips the script on how we think about aging. He takes all these common conditions and reframes them as just a breakdown of this one thing, connective tissue. I mean, think about this for a second. Glaucoma? He says that's not just an eye problem, it's osteoporosis of the eye. Wrinkles on your skin? That's osteoporosis of the skin. All of a sudden, you see it's all pointing back to the same fundamental mechanism. And the way he describes his connective tissue is It's just incredible. It's not just some boring, passive scaffolding holding you up. No, he calls it the goo and the glue of the body. It's the jello mold that gives your organs their shape and holds them in place. And get this, he even calls it the womb for every single cell, the very matrix that nurtures them.
This all leads him to coin this amazing and kind of funny term for what we see as aging. He calls it blobification. You know, that sagging, that loss of firmness and structure that we all notice over time? He says at its core, that's just blobification. It's the physical sign that our vital connective tissue is breaking down.
Okay, so if the big root problems are dirty blood and deteriorating connective tissue, what do we do about it? What's the solution? Well, Fuchs proposes a unified strategy that goes right after these root causes. So you can forget the old idea of a specific pill for a specific ill. His solution is a multi-pronged approach that's all about restoring the body's foundation. It means you stop chasing symptoms and you start focusing on the real stuff. You focus on fixing the gut to clean up the blood at the source. You work on controlling your blood sugar to get rid of that toxic sludge. You use strategic supplements to literally rebuild that connective tissue. You improve oxygenation, and that can be as simple as deep breathing. And finally, you help your entire system detoxify itself. And this, right here, really captures that fundamental shift in thinking. The standard medical model often feels like you're just treating the rotten fruit on the tree. You're focused on the symptom. This systemic model, it's about ignoring the fruit for a second, getting down on your hands and knees, and focusing all of your energy on nourishing the roots of the tree. And that really is the crucial takeaway from all this. Once you start to understand these upstream mechanisms, your whole role can shift. You go from being a passive patient, just receiving treatments, to becoming an active, empowered participant in your own health story. So ultimately, this whole framework challenges us to ask a new question. What if that problem you're dealing with isn't the problem at all? What if it's just a signal, a message from your body inviting you to look deeper, to go upstream, and to finally find the true underlying cause?
Is that my main man, Pharmacist Ben?
Yes, sir. How are you, my friend?
Doing all right. Happy
All right.
holidays.
Yeah, and I'm just noticing our title here. How come you never tell me these things?
Well, because, I like to make sure I throw you a curveball every now and then.
Okay, all right. Iron Infusions, I saw. And what else?
Okay, so Iron Infusions and the holidays. Let me just get these captions off the screen. So we got holiday healing, iron infusions, synergy, and myths. And let me just let you know what the core of that comes from.
Okay.
One piece being explanatory, the iron infusion. But then we also had some folks, with some questions that I have here. But that is the core. I don't want to minimize what the person asked me, so I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. How are you?
All right. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Doing well. Some of the questions that were asked of us. Let's just see here. Drug interference. The myth of drug interference. That's kind of nutrients.
Myth of drug interference. What does that mean? Oh, with nutrition, with nutrients?
Yeah, like you're the concept that your nutrition is not going to interfere with your poison. That sort of concept.
Okay, I like that.
So that's the origin of our title. And you didn't see our little video that we had before you got here, which was a kind of a synopsis of your philosophy.
Mine?
Yeah.
Why did you not show me?
Well, because you were not with us yet. You just got here.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure that the folks knew that we were gonna be here on time, and excuse me, that we were actually gonna do a show, because there's a little bit of confusion about that, given that it's a holiday week and Bruce is telling us happy holidays.
Okay. Who's Bruce?
Bruce is our number one guy, lives in Florida, and is always on Daily with Doc and always on Pharmacist Ben Fuchs, and a distributor in your downline. So
I love that. Is he buying product?
yeah, Bruce does his thing, man. Bruce is a good guy for sure.
Okay. Well,
But what do you think of iron shots? What do you think of?
I think iron. You got to be really careful with iron. Iron's a pro-oxidant and pro-aging, and a lot of times people think they have anemia. Doctors, not and people assume that when they have anemia, they're tired, that they have low iron. Low iron isn't not always the case. It's a lot of times not the case. It's low hemoglobin, low red blood cells, and iron is tightly controlled in the body. So it's just a more drug mentality, except with iron, with nutrition.
I was watching something. I forget. I think on Facebook, and we're talking about iron. Like you kind of said, being a toxin. They were much more pro copper. I forget in what
Copper is the same thing. Both of them are transition metals. And if you look on the periodic table, iron and copper are not exactly right next to each other, but very close to each other. And they're considered to be transition metals because they change their electronic configuration readily. And they go from pro-oxidant to antioxidant pretty readily. So you got to just be really careful with these kinds of supplements with copper and with iron, especially iron, which is very, very pro-aging. Copper, not quite as bad. And iron infusions, unless you're fully blown iron deficient, I just don't know. Iron is tightly controlled in the body. Iron is, it's not like you just put iron in and then put your iron in your blood and all of a sudden iron goes to work. The absorption of iron is tightly regulated. But we can talk about it on the call.
Well, we're on the call.
You there?
We're live. I'm sorry, we're live.
Oh, we're live.
We've been live for the past 15 minutes.
Oh, no, we have not.
Well,
no,
at least 10 minutes. At least 10 minutes.
All right. So iron is obviously an essential nutrient, but excess iron can be pro-aging.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when people are diagnosed with anemia, which is the main reason for giving iron supplements or iron infusions, a lot of times it's not iron deficiency. And iron infusions are probably used a lot more than physiology would justify. So iron can be excessive. It can be unnecessary. It's a double-edged sword. Yes, you need it for oxygen transport, for mitochondrial function, but free iron or poorly regulated iron is biologically dangerous, and this is why the body controls it. Oral iron, obviously, is the most how we evolved. We evolved with oral iron, not iron infusions from meat, which is the best source of iron, animal products. There's iron in vegetables, but it's not quite as good. Iron handling is probably the most tightly regulated mineral system regulation in all of biology, because iron is both essential and dangerous. There is no active iron excretion pathway. So regulation of iron levels in the body has to be controlled by absorption, trafficking, storage, and chelation or sequestration. Your body can't say there's too much iron, we're going to eliminate it. There's no active iron excretion pathway. Does that make sense? You follow me?
Yes.
So
And it's
iron
not
absorption.
dangerous.
Iron absorption is in the small intestine. In the last part of the small intestine, the duodenum and the jejunum, they call it. And if you have small intestinal problems, which of course almost everybody does, at least that people are sick, you're not going to absorb your iron. That's why that's where iron infusions come in. Even in a healthy situation, only a small fraction of dietary iron is absorbed. So iron is just super tightly regulated. Dietary iron comes in two forms: meat iron or animal food iron. They call it heme iron. Have you heard this term, heme iron? Heme iron is very high. It's much more bioavailable than the non-heme iron, which is found in plants and supplements too, for that matter. Most non-heme iron is in an electronic form that does not cross membranes. And to be absorbed, it has to be electronically modified. Without getting into too much chemistry, it has to be reduced from the ferric form to the ferrous form, and then it gets transported into the intestinal cell. One hack for iron absorption, by the way, is vitamin C. So if you take your liver, or you take your spinach, for example, with vitamin C, you'll upregulate the absorption of that iron. Phytates and calcium also will slow down the absorption, I should say, of the iron. Once the iron is inside the intestinal cell, that's where the body makes a critical decision. It'll either store it, it'll get bound or tied up or locked up inside the intestinal cell, and when that cell sloughs off, the iron will be lost in your bowel movement. And this is a protective mechanism because remember, there's no active iron excretion pathway. The second thing that can happen is iron will exit the cell via a transport protein. And once it's exported out of the cell, it will get bound to something called transferrin. Have you heard of this?
Mm.
And then it will get delivered to tissues. Iron metabolism is super, super, super tightly controlled. There's actually a hormone that's made in the liver that is the major controller of iron balance. It's called hepcidin. Hepcidin binds to the iron transporter complex and then destroys it, and that keeps iron from leaving the cell. This affects iron absorption, iron metabolism, and iron release from the liver. If you have high hepcidin, the iron is going to be locked away. And hepcidin goes up when we have inflammation, when we have infection, and when we have chronic disease. Now, we know that 1 out of 3 or so Americans have what? Fatty liver disease. That will cause hepcidin to go up. That will cause iron to get locked away, and it'll look like you're iron deficient. You follow me? And then your doctor will give you more iron. But the problem is not that you don't have enough iron, it's that your liver's inflamed. So metabolic syndrome is one of the causes of what looks like iron deficiency, but what is in reality iron getting locked away. And that's the basis of what they call anemia of chronic inflammation. It's not an iron deficiency problem, it's a liver problem. And that's what really people should be checking, is liver issues. You follow me?
Yes.
Now, when hepcidin is low, the iron will flow freely. And hepcidin levels drop when you're deficient. Why would hepcidin levels drop when you're deficient? So you can get more iron. However, low oxygen, hypoxia, will also cause hepcidin to drop. Why? Because low oxygen is interpreted as an iron deficiency by the body. Same with blood loss. So if you're losing blood somewhere, your hepcidin will drop and iron will flow more freely. And you get more absorption and more mobilization of stored iron. So basically, you want to look at it as a liver problem, is how I see it. And that's the first thing that should be checked, is liver issues. And we know that a lot of people have liver issues. So before somebody gets a liver infusion, how do you know you don't have a fatty liver disease and it's causing a metabolic problem that's elevating your hepcidin and keeping the iron locked away? That's what I would be checking. Given iron's double sword nature, the good side and the bad side, the pro-aging effects of iron, given the dark side of iron, if you will, I'd be checking for liver issues first and foremost.
Given the fact that we have the woman's hormonal pack now has an iron product, what's the correlation between?
What is the iron product? What is the iron product, first of all? Do you know?
Yeah, I can look it up. But I guess my question is, what's the correlation between menopause and the seemingly deficiency in iron?
Liver. The liver. You can pretty much assume that you're going to have, if you're standard American, you have standard American diet, living the standard American lifestyle, you're going to have liver problems. And if you have liver problems, that's going to result in in issues with hepcidin, and it's going to impact liver iron absorption. And by the way, hemochromatosis, have you heard of this?
Hemochromatosis,
yes.
Blood.
That's where you have excess iron
Uh-huh.
in the blood.
Uh-huh.
In hemochromatosis, your hepcidin is inappropriately or artificially or somehow pathologically low, and that causes iron to flow. All of this can be very confusing, but basically you want to regard iron issues or iron deficiency issues first and foremost as a liver problem. Check the liver. Work with fatty liver disease. Where does the liver fall into our triangle of disease? It's the first 2 points. It's a digestive organ and a blood sugar organ.
Mm-hmm.
So it's back to the triangle of disease. Now, iron in hemochromatosis, iron can accumulate, and that can be a big problem. And by the way, iron, one of the places iron really accumulates is in the liver. So if you already have liver problems, now you're really going to have an issue.
Okay, so
iron can accumulate in the heart. So if you have a liver problem, you're not making hepcidin, you got high levels of iron in the blood, that can lead to arrhythmias and cardiomyopathy. Again, secondary to liver problems. Follow me?
Yes.
One of the biggest problems that women, but men too, but that women complain about is something called hyperpigmentation. Have you heard of this?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that happens when iron deposits, when iron accumulates following liver issues, is hyperpigmentation. And hyperpigmentation is notoriously difficult to treat. So basically, I would be treating iron issues as a liver issue first. Now, if you're completely deficient, you're starving or something, you're not eating meat, or for whatever reason you're deficient in iron, then an iron infusion or iron supplements can help. But I think a lot of people who think they have iron deficiency are really dealing with liver issues.
Okay, but now
this is not a great source of iron. It's a very small amount. What is this product?
This is called Ultimate Iron 26.
You'll get some iron. They're smart enough to put vitamin C in there. That's the real key, is the vitamin C is going to dramatically improve the absorption of the iron. The folate's nice too, but the real heavy lifting is done by iron and vitamin C.
Okay, but my what I'm trying to understand is you can see this branding is dealing with the new women's line, the new women's line.
Why women? Why do you say why are women most especially susceptible?
Because you described what you think is maybe a liver problem or fatty liver.
This is not menopausal women. This is just women, right?
This is menopausal women.
Where does it say? Does it say menopausal?
It doesn't say menopause here, but it's kind of associated with the menopause.
The reason why women are more predisposed or more why they're more associated with iron issues is because they bleed. Women have periods and they lose iron in the blood. So this one is I don't know if this is a menopause product, is it? It's a woman's product.
It's a woman's product, but maybe it's
No, it's not a menopause product. It says it right here. Help women support overall health, energy, and healthy iron levels. Women have periods. They bleed. They lose iron in the blood. So iron deficiency is more likely to affect women because blood loss is associated with iron deficiency.
Okay.
Make sense?
Okay. I will keep that in mind. We had a couple of questions coming in on the side. Our good friend Wyoming Annie
Yeah.
has mentioned, is it okay to add her teaspoon of colloidal copper to her plant-derived minerals? This really keeps the gray out of her hair.
Why not? Of course. Doc has been talking about colloidal copper for hair, for gray hair, for decades.
Mm-hmm.
So if it helps her, why not? I mean, what's the downside? Why is there something I'm missing here? Is there a negative?
Well, because you mentioned iron and copper.
Oh, okay, because copper. Yeah. Copper's not quite as dangerous as iron. Colloidal copper is a completely different species.
Mm-hmm.
Colloidal minerals bypass or mitigate the issues associated with the instability of what they call transition metals, or we'll just say for our purposes here, for these labile or flexible elements. They call them minerals, so we'll call them minerals, but really they're elements. So iron, copper, are the two most notorious, but let's see what else here. I'm looking at my periodic table. Chromium, maybe vanadium. These transition metals are called transition metals because they transition. They go from one electronic state to another. And this moving around from one electronic state to another turns things from a pro-oxidant to an antioxidant. A pro-oxidant steals electrical energy. It's short electrons, short electricity. An antioxidant has extra electricity, so it can donate. The transition metals, copper and iron, specifically what we're talking about, go from one state to another. They transition from a pro-oxidant to an antioxidant, depending on pH, depending on how much electronic energy is available, etc. So it's a little tricky. And that's why you got to be very careful when you're supplementing with copper and iron. Now, colloidal iron, or colloidal silver, or colloidal copper, doesn't have the same electronic nature. It's surrounded with material that stabilizes it. So you don't have that problem with colloidal minerals. That's why colloidal silver is non-toxic. Silver is pretty toxic, but colloidal silver is not. Iodine, you got to be really careful with, but colloidal iodine, you don't have to worry about. So, or as much. So when a mineral becomes colloidal, it renders it much more stable. And that can be good or bad, because sometimes you need in order to have activity, you need to have a little bit of instability. Which is why some people will tell you colloidal minerals aren't really they don't really do the work. It's the ionic minerals that do the work. Colloidal minerals will change the electrical milieu in the fluids. They have electrical charges, but you can't really get the same nutritional value from the mineral itself. The real minerals are found in the liquid. They're not colloidal. They're not suspended as colloids. They're dissolved as ions.
Like our fulvic acid minerals?
That's exactly what fulvics are.
Okay.
Fulvics are ionic. Mm-hmm. Fulvic minerals are ionic minerals. They dissolve. Colloidal minerals don't dissolve. They hang. But in the hanging, you also get benefits. The hanging creates an electronic milieu that changes the electrical nature of the fluid. So that's why colloidal minerals are beneficial as well. They're both beneficial, and that's why the mineral toddies and the colloidal mineral drinks and the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, you get benefits from the ions and the colloids.
All right, Pharmacist Ben. Before I ask an important question that just came in, I want to say happy holidays to Napster Freak and Miss Philly and In Together Health and Barbara and Wyoming Annie and our illustrious Becca Dukes and Bruce and everyone else who's watching live or on Maryland. I know Maryland's watching, Keely, and everyone else is watching. I want to say thanks for watching. Happy holidays, and let's have an amazing 2026. Pharmacist Ben, our question here is, is coming from a guy named Grant. He listened to you on Coast to Coast a few weeks back, and you told a great story about a kid who had his colon cancer reversed.
Yeah, whenever I go on George Norrie, he always asks me about the most dramatic story, and this is always one I always think about. And this is when I first started going on Coast to Coast. I had a kid who called me up, and he had stage 4 colon cancer. And I worked with him basically with foods, had probiotics and digestive strategies, and his cancer reversed. And I hadn't heard from him for many years, but the last I heard from him, he was doing fine. Now, another really important story is the Parkinson's story. I tell that too, the same idea. We want to get this, it's natural that when we're sick, we go to the doctor. But the problem is they're looking at things medically. To look at things medically is not the same things as looking at things biologically. From a biological perspective, the body is capable of a heck of a lot more, has a lot more regenerative powers than the medical model gives it credit for. And that's why the medical model uses drugs and surgical procedures. And in fairness to them, they're trying to save your life. And that's how they're looking at it. So that's great. And you obviously want your life saved. You don't want to be dead. But at the same time, you don't want to have your life saved at the expense of your quality of life for the rest of your life, unless you have an emergency. That's why I prefer working nutritionally first and foremost, rather than medically. Are there times you need medical intervention? Of course, obviously, but as a last resort, not as a first resort.
Okay, well, this gentleman said his sister's going through it. She's taking conventional route, but she was hoping to get some advice from a lot of people think you're a doctor on preventative and overall colon health, along with his methodology regarding colon repair versus the conventional.
Okay, so we talk about this pretty much every time, every show, right? It's the first point on the triangle of disease. So there's several elements to colonic health. First of all, there's the environment of the inner environment. That means bacteria, probiotics, good bacteria, but not a lot. Most of the bacteria live in the large intestine, not the small intestine. But there are some in the small intestine, but you got to be careful of overgrowth. That's where SIBO comes in. And that's food, basically. And that's where the whole FODMAPs thing comes in. Sugar feeds bacteria, keeping going ketogenic, low calorie, using quality fats like butyrate, which we've talked about in the past. That can be helpful. There's a couple of zinc is important for the intestinal lining, collagen peptides, glucogel caps, fiber, as long as you're not dealing with SIBO, because fiber can make SIBO worse. I'm sure I'm forgetting some stuff. There's one thing that comes. I-26, of course. I-26, which is hyperimmune egg, which is specifically formulated to kill off excess bacteria. Now, enzymes are interesting because enzymes are not going to directly affect the small intestine, but they will indirectly affect the small intestine. Why? Because what you're looking for is to break up food in the stomach before it gets into the intestine. If you don't break up the food, if you have enzyme deficiencies and you don't break up the food appropriately, it's going to be much more difficult to absorb nutrients. In fact, in terms of proteins, if you don't break up your proteins effectively, they can actually putrefy in the intestine, which is obviously not a good thing. They can rot in the intestine, and you don't want that. So enzymes indirectly support intestinal health, but bile salts, which are part of the ultimate enzymes and a lot of enzyme formulations, those will directly improve intestinal functioning and intestinal health. And that's a really important point. And we've gone over, we haven't talked about it recently, but we've talked about a lot. The main juncture in the digestive system is when the food enters into the duodenum from the stomach, the first part of the intestine, because duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. So the first part of the intestine is where food, or it's not even food, it's called chyme, dumps from the stomach into the intestine. Okay? So you eat a food, gets crunched up, it gets turned into a soupy, mushy mass called chyme, C-H-Y-M-E. That chyme is created by the macerating action of the stomach, the crunching action, the pressure, or I guess movement in the stomach, the muscular contractions, in combination with acid, and enzymes. So enzymes, acid, muscular contractions all turn the food into the soupy mass called chyme. Now, if you're healthy, that chyme is going to be very acidic. It's going to be low pH. Why? Because you have acid in the stomach if you're healthy. Not everybody's healthy, and that's a very important point I'll talk about here in a second. But if you're healthy, the chyme is going to be acidic. So far, so good?
Yes, sir.
And as that acidic chyme enters into the intestine, the magic happens. That point where the chyme enters into the intestine is the most important juncture in the entire digestive tract, because that's where the chyme will release its nutrients. Specifically, this happens like this. It's very cool. The chyme's acidic. The acid triggers a very important reaction, biological reaction, where bile is released from the gallbladder and pancreatic juices are released from the pancreas. The bile from the gallbladder and the pancreatic juices are alkaline. They're high pH. So what do you suppose happens when chyme, which is low pH and acidic, reacts with pancreatic juices and bile, which are alkaline?
Boom.
Not exactly a boom. You don't explode, but yes.
And then neutral. It sounds like
a fizzy reaction happens. And in that fizzy reaction, I always think of when Thanksgiving dinner, when you want to clean the grease off your pan, you take lemon juice or apple cider vinegar and you mix it with soap. Lemon juice and apple cider vinegar are obviously acidic. Soap is alkaline. And that same thing happens. You get that same kind of same kind of, it's not a boom, it's a chemical reaction that releases the grease off the pan. Have you ever done this?
Ever done this to clean your pans? I've used lemon and soap all the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Apple cider vinegar, I've used that before too.
That same reaction happens in the intestine. The alkaline bile and pancreatic juices hit the acid chyme, you get a fizz, and the fats and nutrients are released. Then the nutrients can get absorbed into the intestine, and the fats can get absorbed into the lymphatic system. But here's where it becomes problematic, and this is something that's very underappreciated. When you have leaky gut, which you know you have if you have a chronic disease, which is a lot of people, you are also going to suffer from malabsorption of nutrients because the intestine is inflamed, so it's not going to be able to absorb minerals and vitamins and amino acids as effectively. What's more, if you have a gallbladder problem, or if you've had your gallbladder taken out, you're not going to get that blastobile. You're not going to get that big hit of bile. If you have gallstones or if you have thick bile, like sludgy bile, we talk about sludgy blood, well, you can have sludgy bile, and bile, by the way, is an extension of the blood. So if you have sludgy bile, you're not going to get that hit. And that means fats are not going to get liberated and nutrients aren't going to get liberated, and you're going to be functionally starving, functionally malnourished, all from not having enough bile or not having or having sludgy bile or having intestinal inflammation. What's more, because this whole process depends on low pH chyme, acid chyme, if you're not making enough stomach acid, again, you're going to have a problem. If you don't make the chyme's not going to be acidic, it's not going to trigger the pancreatic juices in the bile. You follow me? And then the chyme is going to enter into the intestine. It's not going to be broken down, and it's going to feed bacteria. And that can end up with then you can end up with SIBO, you could end up with burping, you could end up with gas, you could end up with heartburn, all following low stomach acid. Is this too much information here?
No, this is that I'm following.
This is why in many cases low stomach acid is behind heartburn, because the low stomach acid doesn't allow the chyme to break down. It ends up feeding bacteria. You end up with bacterial proliferation. They release gases that push up digestive juices. So your heartburn is actually the end result of too little stomach acid, much more often than too much stomach acid. Yes, I'm sorry.
How would you ensure that you have adequate stomach acid?
By either using stomach acid supplements, betaine HCl, or by using digestive bitters, stomach bitters, to stimulate acid, or by using apple cider vinegar with your meals, or if you want, actually getting hydrochloric acid drops from a compounding pharmacy. And then you just put a couple of drops of hydrochloric acid in water and drink it.
But does that fix your problem long term, or
No, temporarily.
so long term
long term, the most
food.
important. Yeah, what's that?
Dr. Wallach says salt your food.
Salt is sodium chloride, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hydrochloric acid contains chloride.
Right.
So Dr. Wallach's thinking, and it's true, is the chloride ion from salt will help you make hydrochloric acid. So that is a strategy you could use.
Mm-hmm. What about kombucha?
Kombucha is acidic. It's fermented. If you have SIBO, you want to be a little bit careful because it's fermented, but it's great. And it's acidic.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had kombucha? Real kombucha?
Well, I get
the kind of bottle. Back in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, we would make our own kombucha before it became a thing.
You'd actually have that?
Yeah, we used to do it all the time. You get a mushroom, a kombucha mushroom. You put it in the fridge. It's called the mother. And you just mix it up and you just put it in the fridge with liquid and it turns into the drink.
Sherry teaches how to make kombucha.
Yeah. The kombucha in the bottles, that became a thing like in the 2000s. But back in the day, SCOBY, yes. Somebody's writing about SCOBY. Back in the day, nobody knew about kombucha. It certainly wasn't popular enough to bottle it and put it in health food stores. So alternative practice, people, granola heads like me in Boulder, Colorado, we were all over the kombucha. I was a granola head.
You know what?
I still am. I'm a proud granola head. Sorry.
No, you're not. You're too fancy for that now. Pharmacist Ben, that was excellent. But okay, so let's just finish up with the digestive system, because I feel like I cut you off a little bit.
Well, not really. What I was trying to say is that juncture right where the food, the chyme, goes into the intestine is critical, because that's where everything gets transformed from something you ate into something the body can use. Right at that point. And everything has to be functioning correctly. Now, by the way, if you have your gallbladder taken out, you'll still get a little bit of bile. And this is why doctors feel comfortable. Doctors know about bile, but they feel comfortable taking out the gallbladder because there's still a little trickle of bile that will always come into the intestine. The problem is it's not going to be tied into food. It's just going to always be trickling into the intestine. And not only is that not going to support effective digestion and absorption, but even worse, that trickle of bile can irritate the intestine. And one of the ways the body deals with irritation is it floods the area with water. And this is why when people have their gallbladder taken out, they're susceptible to chronic diarrhea, or at least diarrhea, because the body's trying to kind of soothe the irritation from the chronic secretion of bile. Not only that, but that little tiny bit of bile isn't going to be enough to really maximize the absorption of vitamin A and vitamin D and vitamin K and vitamin E and zinc, and selenium, and essential fatty acids. So you're going to very likely run deficient in nutrients that are going to affect overall health, particularly skin health. And people who have their gallbladder out notoriously end up with skin problems, in addition to diarrhea and intestinal problems.
Dr. Wallach always talks about the ultimate enzymes being the gallbladder in a bottle.
Kind of like that because they have bile in there.
Would you think that someone should supplement with something like aloe vera to keep the irritation down a bit?
Never hurts. Aloe vera is awesome. Yes, and Fucoid Z. Fucoid also has a calming, anti-inflammatory effect. One of the really cool things about bile that nobody talks about, because bile is obviously important for the digestive system, it's also your main detox fluid. Drugs and old hormones come out in the bile. So if you have a bile problem, you're going to end up with a toxicity problem too, particularly in terms of old hormone, in terms of estrogen. And it's a known fact that women who are postmenopausal are more likely to have gallbladder problems than other people, because the gallbladder and bile play such an important role in detoxification of old hormones.
In a similar way that fucoidan does, or in a different way?
You mean detox?
Yeah.
No.
Getting rid of old hormones.
Fucoidan doesn't get rid of old hormones. Fucoidan will chelate.
Mm-hmm.
Fucoidan is an amazing substance, first of all, but it's different from bile. Bile is one of the is a part of an elimination pathway. Your stool is made up of bile, or at least partially made up of bile. So what's supposed to happen, and this is another cool thing about bile. So here's your gallbladder, right? Here's your intestine. The gallbladder secretes its bile into the intestine, like we just talked about. But this is where it becomes really, really fascinating. The bile then goes through the intestine, and about 10% or a small percentage, I'm not sure exactly the percentage, gets eliminated and is part of your stool. But the rest of the bile recirculates. And that recirculation creates the problems. Because now, if the bile is carrying waste and a lot of toxicity, that waste and toxicity is going to recirculate. And the bile will become sludgy. This is where stones come from. This circulation of bile, they call it meaning intestinal, hepatic, liver circulation, this enterohepatic circulation of the bile is what leads to stones when there's a lot of toxicity present. The bile becomes sludgy as it circulates. Also, if you have the wrong kind of bacteria or too much bacteria, estrogen and a female hormone can recirculate and become potentized. And this can create all kinds of havoc in menopausal women, perimenopausal women, really in all women. And this is the connection between the intestine and menstrual problems or female health problems or fibromyalgia or infertility or endometriosis or cancer for that matter, estrogenic cancers. It's kind of complicated here. I don't know why you're asking me all these complicated questions.
It's not. You don't make it sound complicated. I mean, you make it sound like I could pass the test. Okay. So a woman wrote in yesterday. And by the way, when you mentioned stones, I had a client call me. And just remind me of the worst pain in my life is when he has kidney stones.
That's unspeakable. I went to a conference many years ago in New York, and I shared a hotel room with this guy who shall remain nameless, because you probably know who he is. And in the middle of the night, he started screaming. Oh my! Screaming bloody murder! I didn't know what the heck was going on. So and he was in the worst pain. And finally, he ended up going to the emergency room, and it was a kidney stone that he had. I'll never forget the screaming this guy was making, the screaming sounds this guy was making from the kidney stones. Yeah. You know, the blood vessels in the kidney are very tiny, and stones are sharp, and they clog. It's like, can you imagine having these little crystal cutting into your blood vessels? It's unspeakable. Unspeakable.
I've had them before. Becca's saying that kidney stones are as close to childbirth as a man can get.
I've heard that. Yeah.
But women tend to be smiling at childbirth.
Not while you haven't seen a woman giving birth. Then, if you think they're smiling, they ain't smiling. They ain't smiling. Maybe at the end they're smiling, but no.
Yeah.
I've seen 2 babies being born, and it is, oh man, it's gnashing of teeth. It is awful. I would never have a baby if I was a woman. I would never do it. And I notice women don't talk to each other about it either. Women never tell each other about it.
Oh no, Keely. Okay, Keely's bringing her sadist side out. So now she's saying, tie me up to some electrodes so I can share the experience. And then we want to be sure to thank our folks watching us on Facebook. who's on Facebook, Becca? I know it's our Canadian friend who's always on. It must be is her name Shirley Horvat? Is that Shirley? Yeah, okay. So Shirley's always with us. She's fantastic. Thank you, Shirley, for being with us. And Pharmacist Ben, we got a question that came in yesterday um, regarding arthritis. Her husband is 74 years old, 175 pounds. Current height is 5'9". He's experienced some shrinking. He has stomach issues. If he eats red meat, onions, or tomatoes, I put him on a clean diet about a year ago. No more fast foods, no sodas, no processed food. He's allowed pasta once in a while. He does eat sourdough bread.
Wait a minute, wait. This is the wife talking about the husband?
Walking about the husband. And
wait a minute, and she allows him what? She allows him?
Yeah. He is allowed pasta.
He's allowed. Okay.
He's allowed pasta once in a while.
All right. He's allowed.
He's allowed sourdough bread once in a while. Same with ice cream.
Okay. Oh, he's allowed a little ice cream every now and then.
She's begun making ice cream at home with no sugar. He hates drinking water. He's had several spinal fractures in his 20s and 30s. Another very bad thoracic fracture in his early 50s. Most recently, a second compression fracture at L3.
Sounds like MBFA to me.
But that sounds like he's had MBFA since his 20s.
Yeah, he's falling apart. The guy's falling apart. Listen, stop. We don't want to overthink these things. Your body's falling apart. That means there's bad stuff getting in and good stuff isn't. The bad stuff, in the case of somebody who has digestive issues, might be good stuff to other people, but bad for him if he's not processing it correctly. So you have to figure that out. There's so much stuff going on here that I would be going back to the basics. Protein, collagen, vitamin C for building collagen, healthy bone and joint pack, fucoid Z for polysaccharides. And then if there's any digestive issues, you got to use digestive support. But don't overthink this. He's basically deteriorating. He's degenerating. He's falling apart at the level of the connective tissue. And the body's made up of four main parts, or four main stuffs, four main types of stuff. You got nervous tissue. Tissue is the word for stuff. You got nervous tissue. You've got covering tissue, which is called epithelial tissue. Mm-hmm. Covering tissue, skin, eyes, glands. And then you got the bulk of the body, which is made up of
connective tissue,
muscle tissue, and connective tissue. If you put muscle tissue and connective tissue together, you get what I call the flesh robot, which is the bulk of the body. Mm-hmm. If you take a cross-section of this flesh robot, take a cross-section, you know what you get? Steak. I'm serious, because the steak is made up of muscle tissue and connective tissue. Arguably, I don't even think it's arguable, the most important part of the body is the connective tissue for many, many reasons. The connective tissue is electrical. The connective tissue holds everything in place. The connective tissue traps water so the body stays structured and coherent. And the connective tissue is responsible for delivering oxygen, nutrition, and detoxification, because the blood is connective tissue and the blood vessels are largely connective tissue. So the connective tissue is the most important part of the body, which makes building connective tissue the very essence of good health, building a body, and most importantly for all of us, anti-aging. Focus on building connective tissue. As we age, naturally, the connective tissue deteriorates, and that's what arthritis is. And that's what gum disease is. And that's what ruptures are. And that's what hernias and aneurysms and heart disease is. Arrhythmias are partially, at least, the end result of connective tissue deterioration, because the heart sits on a skeleton of connective tissue, a little mini skeleton of connective tissue. Osteoporosis is a connective tissue deterioration condition. And of course, I'm in the skin business, and wrinkles and thinning skin, which cause more distress than any other health or aging issue. Those are also connective tissue concerns. And because the connective tissue feeds and oxygenates and detoxifies the cells, almost every single disease can be related to a connective tissue problem. The connective tissue, the cells are nestled in connective tissue the way an embryo or a fetus is nestled in the womb. And just like the womb is responsible for nourishing and oxygenating and detoxifying the fetus, the connective tissue does the same thing for the cells. The cell is like a baby, a fetus, sitting in connective tissue, exactly analogously to the way a fetus sits inside the womb. And in fact, the Latin name for womb is matrix. And what do we call the stuff the cell is sitting in? The extracellular matrix. Mm-hmm. It's a womb.
Pharmacist Ben, there are 20 grams of a collagen blend in the YGY collagen peptides.
Okay. 20 grams per what? Per scoop?
For 2 scoops is 20
grams for 2 scoops. Okay. How big is a scoop? Does it say?
It's 21.2 grams.
A scoop? No. How big? How much powder does a scoop hold?
It's saying 21.2 grams.
And 20 grams of that is collagen?
Yes.
It's pretty good. So it's essentially.
It doesn't really add up, though.
That doesn't sound quite right, because there's got to be other things.
Because there's 19 grams of protein. Everything else is in milligrams, but protein is 19 grams, and then 20 grams of collagen. That would be with the other components, it'd be 40. So I'm not really sure what they mean by that. But at any rate,
yes.
How much? If there's 20 grams of collagen blend, how much should we be consuming on a daily basis? You think?
How much collagen or how much protein or what?
Collagen is the question.
There's no real answer to that. The going rate for protein is about 0.5 gram to 1 gram per pound of body weight.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no real definitive answer. That's just a general rule of thumb. If you're sick, you need more protein. If you're recovering from surgery, you need more protein. If you're frail and elderly, you need more protein. If you're pregnant, you need more protein. If you're under duress, you need more protein. If you're an athlete or bodybuilder or physical performer on some level, you need more protein.
What about collagen?
Collagen is the body's most abundant protein. And collagen gets, most people, when they think of collagen, they think of their skin, maybe even their bones, but collagen plays a tremendously important role in every single system in the body, because the matrix, which we just talked about, is largely made up of collagen.
Is there a blood test for a hepcidin level?
I'm sure there is.
Okay, Lenny's asking that. Thank you, Lenny. Napta Freak. They are laughing at my body's falling apart disease. Monique says, great info, Ben. Not too complicated at all.
Thank you, Monique.
So informative in it together health. Jesse is asking, is there any hope or help for long COVID?
Oh, heck yeah. Everybody who has long COVID has comorbidities. Nobody without comorbidities have long COVID. And what do you think the most common comorbidity is for long COVID? Let me rephrase that. What do you think the 2 most common comorbidities are for long COVID?
I got to say blood sugar issues like diabetes and then...
And the first 2 points in the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2 points in the triangle. Long anything, long COVID, long Lyme disease, health challenges that don't resolve, like COVID or infections or Lyme or whatever it is. You can rest assured you are streaming toxicity in through the bloodstream, and you probably have dysglycemia, messed up blood sugar too. Histamine, Histamine is an allergic mediator, and something called LPS, which stands for lipopolysaccharides, which are little particles, bacterial membrane particles from the intestine. They're always associated with long-term chronic inflammation. That's where dirty blood comes in. Dirty blood.
So what do you think about doing a colonic hydrotherapy?
Colonics are awesome. I had a
Are you?
did I tell you the story?
You had a girlfriend that used to do colonic.
I told you that story? No. I
don't think everybody else heard it though.
Okay, so when I started doing longevity, I didn't start. I've been doing longevity for about 6 or 7 years. It was early 2000s, 2002 actually, so about 5 years. This rep, this longevity rep, she wanted to introduce me to this girl, a friend of hers. I was single, and she was single, so she thought she'd make a little hookup, right? So I started communicating with this lady, and she lived in Kansas. Her name Janice High was her name. Hi, Janice, if you're listening. And anyway, and we started communicating back and forth, and we did the little flirty thing and all that. And she decided to come visit me. She lived in Kansas, I think Kansas City. And she decided she was going to come to Boulder to come visit me. And I'd never met her, but we talked on the phone, and we were all, there was no FaceTime, obviously, back then. I didn't see her, but we talked on the phone. And she comes to visit me, and it's New Year's Eve. She's going to come for New Year's Eve, right? So she comes on New Year's Eve, and I met her for the first time. And, I was a young guy, and we were going to have all our fun and party and this and that and the other. And I went out to dinner, and in the middle of the night, I started getting so sick. I'd never had food poisoning before, but I got food poisoning. And this is my date, who I was like all ready to get, have fun with, right? And I'm throwing up and diarrhea. It was not romantic at all. It was not fun at all. And I was absolutely miserable. And this is after, months of like building up the tension. And so anyway, and I was so sick. Oh my God, it was the worst. And but it turns out that Janice was a colonic therapist. And she says to me, we're going to get a colonic. And I'd never gotten a colonic before. And the last thing I wanted to do was get a colonic with my new girlfriend, or, she wasn't my girlfriend, but my friend, my date, right? But she was, cool about it. I was so sick. And so I went and got a colonic, and she sat right next to me. No, it was the next day. And I went and got a colonic, and it was, it was a little embarrassing. And I don't know if you've had it, but if you ever seen it, but there's a tube and you can see everything coming out of you. And she was right there, right next to me.
She's in the room monitoring.
Right next to me, man. And she's a colonic therapist. That was what she did. But I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it looks like you had a little bit of bacon.
Yeah, she was right there. I mean, there was no secrets, right? And but after the colonic, I felt so good. I was like a new person. It was the most unbelievable transition from being incredibly sick to just feeling awesome, all from a colonic. And within minutes after it was done, I felt so awesome. I became a huge believer in colonic therapists, which I am in colonic therapy, which I am to this day. It's awesome stuff. Make sure you're using probiotics. You're repopulating the gut, the large intestine with bacteria, because you lose bacteria. But other than that, it's awesome.
Napster Freak is commenting on how romantic your first date was with her.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you go, but I gotta let you know a secret.
Yeah.
Your buddy TC. TC.
Yeah. I love TC. I love TC.
I know you do. I talk to TC now. Because
Are you friends now?
TC came to New York.
He told me.
I made it a point to go meet TC.
Where did you meet him? In the city?
Yeah, we were at some diner that.
Okay.
Victor,
had you never met him before?
Never.
He's a great guy.
So I made it a point to meet. He's modified by that lovely wife of his. He didn't have Denise. He'd probably be like some.
I've known Denise. She's unreal. She's unreal. I've known Denise probably for 35 years or so, for a really long time, even before longevity. She's from Boulder, so I've known Denise for a really long time. And Tom, I haven't known for as long, but I remember when Tom met Denise, and like everybody, he fell in love with Denise. Like everybody falls in love with Denise, and God love Denise. She saw what a beautiful guy Tom was, and she went for it. And they've been married now for, I don't know, for 27 years or so, 26
Yeah,
years.
yeah, they make a good couple.
They're a great couple. Great couple.
So, but he shared some pictures on Facebook.
Oh, did you see that picture?
Oh wait, wait.
Ah,
So, a couple comments. Did you know Cheryl Morley back then?
of course.
You knew her.
Of course.
I saw a picture of Cheryl. I'm like,
Yeah. Of course I knew Cheryl. I know. I used to do talk. Yeah, I used to do talks with Cheryl. Dude, when I started with the company was a year old. I wasn't there at the beginning, but I was there within the first year. And there were like 500 people in the whole company.
Yeah.
It was like a tiny little, it was tiny. Everybody knew each other.
Yeah.
And then it just kept going and going and going. And listen, for people listening to this program who are new in longevity or not familiar with the history of longevity, this is not typical to have a network marketing company going strong after 28 years or 27 years. And it's a testimony to how effective the products are, how effective the business is, how wonderful the business is, and how consistent the business is, and how awesome the company is. So if you're out there and you're thinking about, you want to start a business, a home-based business, network marketing business, you could do, it would be very difficult to find a better company than Longevity. I don't know of any better companies than Longevity, not to mention we're working with people's health. And the reason we've been so successful is because the products are so freaking amazing. And it's not just me saying that. It's to the point where, I say this all the time, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't stand up on every platform I could find, every rooftop I could find, and just talk about Beyond Tangy Tangerine and Fucoid Z and the Healthy Start Pack and all the other incredible products from Longevity. Not to mention we got AJ, we got Becca, we got me, we got Tom, we got Denise, we've got Dr. Glidden and Joanna Conaway. And, there's so many people who understand health inside and out, who are dedicated not only to making the world a better, healthier place, but to helping people make some money too and have a good, healthy business as well as a healthy body.
Absolutely. And then, you seeing that picture of you.
Did you like that picture?
I was like, it just didn't strike me as you. I'm like that. I could see it's you, but the personality in the picture.
Let me tell you something. I found a mother load of old pictures that I had, and I have got some other pictures that you crack you up too, of me when I was younger. But one of those pictures was that picture, and I sent it to Tom, and Tom posted.
Is that how it got around?
Yeah, I was going through these old pictures that I had. I was going through a drawer and I found a whole bunch of old pictures, and one of them was that. But I found a lot of other pictures of me too that you probably crack you up as well. Back when I was a youngin.
Yeah, first thing that struck me was how black your hair was.
My hair was black
and thick and full. Look at this guy.
That was the day, back in the day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right. Well, everyone here is saying to you, Merry Christmas and
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Cheers of Tangy Tangerine. Becca had asked me earlier today. She said, "What was the question, Becca? What was the holiday? What was your go-to holiday food?"
Mine?
Yeah, and I said, of course, Tangy Tangerine souffle, of course.
Of course. Tangy Tangerine and vodka.
Oh, what's your favorite dessert? What's your favorite dessert?
Probably like sherbet, like fruit sherbet stuff. That would probably be my favorite dessert.
Mm-hmm.
Can't eat a lot of it. It's pretty heavy, pretty sweet. And then also my favorite holiday food, believe it or not, is beets.
Oh, really?
That's considered holiday food. Yeah, that's my
nitric oxide.
Nitric oxide, absolutely. To this day, I can't figure out how some people don't like beets. George, whenever I talk about beets on Coast to Coast, he's like, I hate beets, and he's always ragging on beets. How could you hate beets? Like sugar. It's like candy.
Do you like your beets steamed or roasted?
Steamed. Yeah, steamed.
Steamed.
Steamed beets.
I'm gonna make a recipe for tangy tangerine sherbet. I'm gonna figure that out.
That could be that could be good.
Yeah.
All right. You could put tangy tangerine in liquid in ice cube trays, and when the ice cubes get stiff a little bit, put a popsicle stick in there,
mm-hmm.
and it makes a great little popsicle for kids. A tangy tangerine popsicle.
I will.
And by the way, if you're looking for a Christmas present for an older person, frail person, younger person, pregnant mom, Beyond Tangy Tangerine is the most awesome Christmas present you can give, particularly for people in nursing homes.
Okay, I'm gonna say this. Becca might kill me, but if you're out there, email us at questions@dailywithdoc.com. I have about 100 coupons that I have saved up over the past year that I will, on select products, you can get them 50% off. So if you have any interest in getting yourself involved with longevity, or you're already involved and you want to save some money, your boy AJ is going to come up off his coupons and hook you up. But you got to email questions@dailywithdoc.com and, make that request, and I will hook you up. But
awesome.
Besides that, I love you all. Thank you for being here. Are we gonna be
Merry
back
Christmas
for the year?
I don't think. Are we gonna do Friday or no?
Well, no Friday, but what about Monday the 29th?
Yeah, I'm good. Monday 29th work. That works.
Okay, so then we have one more before the end of the year. Pharmacist Ben, you're the man. You want me to send you this video I played earlier? Or
yeah. Send it to me. I'd love to see it.
Okay. Well,
thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, and
bye.
Have a good night.